Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. My name is Kat and I make houseplant videos here on Good and Planty. If you just so happen to absolutely love this video, please consider liking it, commenting, subscribing, or following me on Instagram. All of these things help me grow my channel like a plant. Let's talk about these earrings. My incredible friend Maddie got me these cute little earrings and I'm so excited for them. So thank you, Maddie. They're looking cute. This video is part of the genus series here on my channel where I discuss one common houseplant genus at a time based on my experience and a little bit of additional research. Today we are going to be discussing AGLAONEMA, otherwise known as Ags or Chinese evergreens. I will be talking about a quick general background on the plant and then of course the general care tips for this genus. Time codes here. Let's jump into it. AGLAONEMA are part of the Araceae family, which does mean that it does flower, and this plant right here isn't flowering right now because we are kind of in late fall, slowly going into winter, which is not the time where this plant will flower, but I will try to insert a picture of what their flowers do look like. These plants are native to a tropical, humid, shady forest environment. You will definitely see how their habitat influences their care tips once we get to that section of the video. So these plants are pretty popular as houseplants because not only are they easy care and low light tolerant, which is a big one, they clearly have beautiful foliage and come in a huge array of varieties, all with striking patterns and a bunch of different colors depending on what you're looking for. This plant specifically is AGLAONEMA wishes and it's beautiful. So there you go. Moving right on into the general care tips of AGLAONEMA. These care tips will vary a little bit depending on what variety you have in your home and what your environment is, but these are the generally accepted care tips for AGLAONEMA. Light. So as I've said, these plants do typically grow on forest floors and are therefore very comfortable in low light. You absolutely want to make sure this plant is not getting direct light, so indirect or diffused light is going to be perfect. Generally, varieties with dark green foliage will need less light than varieties with bright green foliage or foliage with bright variegation, like the pink variegation on this wishes. This is a plant that would definitely benefit from regular rotating so that it is growing full and even on all sides. And lastly, this plant will definitely benefit from regular leaf cleanings. Not only is the leaf size pretty large, but also the glossy texture of the leaves are incredible at collecting dust. I will link the solution that I use to clean my leaves up here. I have a whole video about it if you're interested. Water. This plant is definitely prone to root rot, so just be careful of that when I tell you about the watering. The watering needs for this plant will kind of vary based on the lighting situation that you are giving it. In general, you will see that AGLAONEMA do like moist soil conditions, but if your plant is in extremely low light, you're gonna want to keep them on the drier side, otherwise you will find root rot. So for example, when this plant was downstairs to the side of a south-facing window, I absolutely kept its soil moist, but now that I've moved it upstairs and keep it in a lower light condition, I wait for the moisture meter to get pretty low on the dry side before I give it a good soak. Always remember that with this plant, it is better to underwater than overwater. So if you're kind of, I don't know if I should water the plant yet, probably don't water it yet. Humidity and temperature. These plants do like humidity, but it's not a huge necessity for this plant. Normal humidity is fine, but they will definitely thrive with high humidity. So if you have a good spot for this plant next to a humidifier, that's probably ideal, but it's not really necessary to do all of like the DIY pebble and tray trick for this plant, because this plant is definitely not near a good source of humidity, but I don't really have crispy tips. Any of the damage that is here is from it being next to the south facing window downstairs. Now for temperature, this plant will do pretty well in normal home temperatures. However, this plant is absolutely sensitive to temperatures below like 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So while it will probably do well in your average home temperature, unless you really like it cold, the plant will be fine. Just make sure that it's not next to any drafty doors or vents or cold windows. Soil. For this plant, I use my typical mix of potting soil, perlite, and a little bit of orchid bark. You just want to make sure that the soil mixture is well draining. And this plant definitely does not need to be repotted unless it's absolutely really necessary. So just let it get root bound, let it live in its home pot for as long as you can. Fertilizer. So as I say in all of my care videos, pretty much use a organic, balanced, heavily diluted organic fertilizer. Definitely don't be fertilizing this plant in the wintertime, especially if the growth is very slow. And in the summer, I fertilize this plant probably every 2 weeks. And lastly, propagation. This plant is kind of hard to propagate within a home setting, especially if you don't have the ideal conditions for this plant to bounce back. But I'm going to recommend definitely root dividing this plant if you're looking to split up your plant a little bit and have a couple babies. For example, this plant in this pot is actually 2 separate plants, so if I wanted to create more Aglaonema, I could definitely separate them into 2 separate plants. Okay, so that's going to be it for today's video. I hope that helped shed some light onto the care for Aglaonema in general. Again, it's going to vary a little bit depending on what kind of Aglaonema you have and what your home looks like, but that was a general idea for you. Please leave any questions or additional tips down in the comment section below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!